from the mound.
The Giants have won the ball game. Bill Laskey, in his first major league start, has shut out the Montreal Expos.
To the mic.
Friend of the show, let's bring in Bryce Eldridge. Let's welcome in Lee Jung-hoo from Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. He wears number 65, Landon Root.
Well, I appreciate it, Bill. I always enjoy talking to you.
Let's welcome in Wade Boggs. Let's bring in Will the Thrill. He's the ace of the staff. Let's welcome in Logan Webb. Logan, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Good to be on here.
Welcome to Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Giants sweep the LA Dodgers.
Sponsored by Lunardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply the best. Right here on your exclusive home of the San Francisco Giants. KNBR, the sports leader.
2-2 pitch. Swing, 3 called, and he wants to challenge. The Giants have no challenge left. And that was way off the corner. Man, Wendelstedt, all of a sudden the Giants can't challenge anymore, and Wendelstedt makes 2 of the worst calls of the whole day in this inning. That ball was way off the inside and low, both.
Welcome into a Sunday edition of the Extra Inning Post-Game Show with Bill Laskey, as this weekend started off on the right feet with the San Francisco Giants as they won Friday 7-6 in 10 innings. They won yesterday 9-2, and they were looking for their first sweep, the first series sweep. The only team out of 30 teams that have not had a sweep. And the Angels didn't let them do it today, as the Angels take the third game of a 3-game series 4-3, 4 runs, 7 hits, 1 error for the Angels, 3 runs, 6 hits, 2 errors for the Giants. The Giants tried to make it tough in the 9th inning, but again, no ABS challenges left, and Elliot Ramos got stuck standing there with a ball that was inside, and Wendelstedt walked off the field as the Giants lose this game 4-3. When you look over this game, Luis Ariz leading off the game with a base hit, tried to test Siri in left field, got thrown out at second base. But if you take that and you put a leadoff hitter, the Giants had runners in first hitters, I should say, the first hitter in 7 out of 9 innings on leadoffs. So they had 7 base runners, either by a walk or a base hit in the 5th inning. Willie Adames hit a ball in the sun, got a double out of it. And they had opportunities, 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position today, 8 left on base. They just could not drive in any runs. And when you look at the middle of the order, who has really been hitting the ball well, Eldridge, Devers, Schmidt, and Gilbert, and you add Rodriguez in there, they were 0 for 13 on the day. The 2 top hitters, Luis Ariz went 2 for 5, Ramos went 1 for 4, and you look at the bottom of the order, Willie Adames was 1 for 4, Drew Cavanaugh 2 for 2. The hits just weren't there today. The home run balls, as they hit 4 of them in the last 2 days, just could not get any offense going. And you look at what Carson Wisenhunt did coming in here 2-0, gave up a double in the first inning to Trout, and ended up scoring on a fielder's choice, almost had a double play. Jorge Soler hits the ground ball, gets the run in, and he was really cruising, 5 up, 5 down with 5 strikeouts in the 2nd and 3rd inning. And in the 4th inning, they ambushed him. Jorge Soler hit the first fastball he saw, 419 feet straightaway center field. And he ends up walking the next hitter, and then he had Joe Adell with a runner on first base. He threw an 0-1 fastball, and he tried to come back with a changeup, and Adell hits it 446 feet deep in the left bleachers, and it ends up being 3 runs right there, and the Giants just could not catch up. That really opened the game up. And when you look at what Carson Wisenhunt did today, I thought he threw the ball well. Just didn't mix up the second time around, came back with the changeups, and they ambushed him a couple times. He went 5 innings, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 3 in that 4th inning, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, and, of course, one of the walks ended up scoring. But what I liked about him, 78 pitches, 50 for strikes. He was into strike zone. The 3-pitch mix, the fastball, the slider, and the changeup. The changeup, of course, his go-to pitch. He threw 33 of those in 78 pitches. 23 of those were swings, and 15 of those were misses. So you know he had the good movement on it, the good changeup, of course, the great windup in the stretch with the same motion and where the ball comes out of his hand. Sometimes it dips, sometimes it dives, but it really one of the strengths that he had. And overall, I thought he did well. The home run balls, of course, he's going to look back, and, of course, the walk. Comes out in the 5th inning, gives up a base hit, and ends up McRae throwing out the runner at shortstop with a little pop-up. It was just a good game overall. The Giants could have come back in this game a couple times. Like I said, the leadoff hitter got on base 7 out of 9 innings. They just couldn't do any damage, and I still think the middle of the order just did not have a good game today, as like I said, 0 for 13 with 5 of them. So that's where you really look at the game summary and you look at what they're doing and what they're not doing, and the key hits with runners in scoring position still are hurting this team. But earlier today, the Baseball Hall of Fame took center stage in Cooperstown, where 3 top-line hitters, Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, both center fielders, got inducted. And, of course, the Giant himself, Jeff Kent, played here 6 years, just really had a nice career, 5-time All-Star, an MVP of the National League in 2000. 62nd player to go in wearing a Giants uniform, and 6th player to adorn the Giants uniform as the team to be in the Hall of Fame. 17 years he played in Major League Baseball, 377 home runs, 246 hits. It was just 2,461 hits, I should say. And just a good day for Jeff Kent. His speech was this pristine. Everything he did today, a little emotional, had his family there, his mom and dad. Of course, Kirk Reeder really centered on Dusty Baker, and a couple other players were there. But overall, just a great day for Jeff Kent. And that's where I'd like to throw the calls out today, 415-808-KNBR. Let's talk about Jeff Kent today. Let's see what you have to say about the Cal alum and what he's done for Cal sports over there, for women's sports. And let's just talk a little Jeff Kent today, because I think today is Jeff Kent's day. All right, we'll take a quick break. 415-808-KNBR. Let's get on the phone lines, talk Giants baseball. Got a great show lined up. Wally Joyner joined me earlier in the week. Of course, Wally Joyner, really a fabulous career with the Angels, one of the best first basemen they had there. So I'll talk a little bit more about him as the show continues, and we'll play that interview later in the show. All right, we'll take a quick break, come back with more. 415-808-KNBR. Let's get on the phone lines. We'll be right back on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
The game may be over, but we know you want to talk more ball. So KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey continues.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
We are KNBR 104.5 and 6.8, the sports leader.
The pitch, and Soler drives one to deep center field. Gilbert's going to watch it. It is gone. On the first pitch of the inning, Soler. And that's that classic Jorge Soler power. Man, did he pummel that pitch. His 12th home run of the year, 2-0 Angels.
Back on the Extra Inning post-game show with Bill Laskey. The Giants held Jorge Soler for the first couple of games. He was only 1 for 10 coming into that bat when he hit the home run that you just heard. First pitch he saw in the fourth inning, a fastball about 94 miles an hour, hit it 419 feet, straightaway center field. We saw his power here when he wore a Giants uniform. Not really hitting for average, only hitting a little over 200, but of course home run ball, he's got the power. That was his 12th home run. Another thing I really like to ask fans today is the ABS, and should Giants or other teams use it as a strategy? You know, we always talk about having one in your back pocket in the ninth inning, and Willie Adames used it on a 3-0 pitch. You know, Crew Kipe and Dave and John thought it was good, and I'm going to go against them. I didn't think it was needed at that time. It was 3-0. I know you're trying to get a walk, but you also had a couple pitches left. I always think of ABS to have a strategy with it, and sometimes they don't think about it that way. So I don't know if that's even talked about in the clubhouse or if there's any kind of strategy with it. Love to hear your thoughts about it today, 415-808-KBR. If you were up there, would you use it at certain times? Would you use it just on one pitch here and there? It seems that's what most players do. I remember Elliot Ramos using it on the very first pitch of a game a couple weeks ago, and I was scratching my head on that one. You only get 2 unless you go into extra innings. So a couple thoughts out there. I'd love to hear what you have about Jeff Kent, and love to hear your thoughts. If you have an ABS system, if you're the manager, do you use it as strategy? Do you hold one in your back pocket, or do you use them whenever you need them? Alex Pavlovich threw a tweet out there since 1956. How about that one? First time since 1956 the Giants have not had a 3-game sweep deep into the season as we have right now, and they're the only team out of 30 teams that have not swept a team. All right, let's get to the phone lines. Let's go to Rick. He's in Hayward. Rick, how are you on a Sunday?
I am good. I got to watch the whole thing, the whole ceremony on the MLB channel this morning, so that was excellent.
Yeah, I watched the same thing. It was good, Rick. I thought it was done very well. A lot of Hall of Famers on that stage, and a couple of them that, you know, you just scratch your head. Tim Raines just did not look well at all. He looked very ill. A couple other ones limped on, and you just see the age in most of these guys. But I thought the ceremony was great.
I agree. I was surprised when I saw Rock. He did not look like Rock Raines to me. He looked very sick, and I hope he's all right. But getting back to JK, I was driving down Hayden Road on a march in 2002, and I happened to see the yellow bike he crashed when he was putting it onto a truck. And I rolled by him, and I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't that Jeff Kent? And then, you know, everything went by, and then you forget about it, and then a few days later, oh, Jeff's hurt. He's not playing because he fell off his truck. And, you know, I think that was one of the reasons why Brian and the Giants didn't go back and sign him in 2003. I think that they were worried. I don't know. Maybe it was all fun.
Yeah, you can't really think that way. I'm sure there was reasons for it. Jeff played really well here for 6 years. I love what he talked about Dusty Baker and what Dusty brought on to him, and the relationship between Dusty was pure. They're friends. They still are friends, and calling out some of his players that he played with, I thought that was very classy.
That was nice, and the guy always had a 100 RBI season with the Giants. He should have finished a Giant. There's no doubt in my mind that when he went to the Astros, that was a huge mistake, and you know, the 2003 team, if we would have kept Levo and if we would have kept, Ortiz And if we would have kept Kent, I think that we would have made a return trip to the World Series that year.
Yeah, and Russ Ortiz did great. He went over to the Braves, and he just had a couple great years over there. I remember interviewing him earlier in the year, and he said his season, the next couple of seasons with Leo Mazzone and Bobby Cox has plateaued, and a lot of things that were built inside of him, they brought out more fastballs, more breaking balls, and same thing with Jeff Kent. He went to Houston, and don't forget he ended up wearing that Dodger uniform for a couple of years. He even brought out Tommy Lasorda's name, which I was surprised at. But, overall, I thought he did a real nice job, Rick, in his whole career. He brought a little bit about a few of the Hall of Famers that helped him, and he brought his family into it, and, of course, it was all centered around Dusty Baker.
I loved it. I even thought bringing up Barry was a kind of like a surprise to me, but, I mean, he did it when he was first announced. He praised Barry on a lot of his interviews on radio and television, so I was happy that he did that. He said what he needed to say, and he did it with elegance and class, just like he always was as a Giant, in my opinion.
There's one word, Rick, that I've always used about Jeff Kent, and it's gamer, because he always wanted to play. He gave it his best, always hard-nosed second baseman, always a hard out. And just some of the clips when he was hitting balls out of Candlestick Park, you just remember that swing, how that front shoulder stayed in, and then the elevation that he had and the power off the barrel of the bat was just, it was unseen. And he did it for so many years. And I was just so glad that people recognized him. 377 home runs, the most of any second baseman in Major League Baseball, and I think that was a star by his name.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I just wish we had him on this year's team.
Well, listen, Rick, we got a full flow of calls coming in here. I appreciate the call on a Sunday, and I'll be back on Wednesday if you want to give me a call on Sports Phone. And, of course, next weekend I'll be back on too. Let's go to San Francisco and talk to David. David, you're on Next Earning Post Game Show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I love Jeff Kent. I think he's well-deserved of this Hall of Fame induction. But my question to you is, in comparison to Billy Williams, who played for the Cubs and the A's towards his end of his career, and Steve Garvey, the numbers are very similar, and I'm wondering what's your take on why Billy Williams and Steve Garvey are not in the Hall of Fame?
Boy, I'd have to see those numbers, but Billy Williams was an excellent player, and so was Steve Garvey. Steve Garvey was a very good defensive first baseman for the Dodgers. His numbers are Hall of Fame numbers. There's more than just a couple players, though, David. There's a handful of guys. I even look at Dale Murphy, who was one of the toughest outs in my career. I don't understand why he's not in, and he's got an MVP on his name. It's so difficult to break that door of the Hall of Fame. It really is. And you can line them up, even Barry Bonds, and you start thinking about all the different names that should be in there. And I wish they would change it a little bit and open the door so fans could see some of the greatest players that played for a lot of the teams in America, and Latin players especially. I just think they need to open it up and make more players into the Hall of Fame. Let me ask you, what did you think of Billy Williams and Steve Garvey? Do you think they're both legit to get in?
Well, when you get a minute, you compare their stats to Jeff Kent's, and it's really similar. I think Steve Garvey had 2 or 3 or 4 seasons where he had over 200 hits, and Billy Williams was a monster for the Cubs in the 60s and 70s, and even later on in his career in Oakland, he had a couple of good years as a DA. So, yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand the process in determining the Hall of Fame, but that was just one thought I had, and I wanted to share it with you and get your take on it.
Let me ask you one more question, David. You watched Jeff Kent for the many years he played here. What was one of the things that you liked about him as a player with the Giants?
I like the fact that he was a hard-nosed, hard-ass, and I love that mentality of being able to get in anybody's face and kind of just doing his thing and creating that kind of – he reminded me a little bit of Pete Rose, and I just love both players, yeah.
And I loved how you brought up Pete Rose, because Pete Rose was just like that. Every game he gave 100%. He would dive for balls, and then running, always the head first slide. I really thought Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. I know the betting scandal and all that as a manager was a big plus and a big black ball on him, but if you're looking at true ability on the field, you know, I faced that guy for many years with Cincinnati and Philadelphia. Hey, he was just a guy that read the room. He read the pitches. He knew what pitches you were throwing, and he watched the ball in. I always say Pete Rose, Rod Carew, Tony Gwynn, and even Luis Ariz are all professional hitters because they studied the game so well before you even got into that on-deck circle. They knew what the pitchers had in the arsenal, and that's what made a good hitter back in my day, and I watched Luis Ariz do it every day. They study and they learn. And that's the big thing when you get into the Hall of Fame. How many guys work besides playing those 9 innings? How much work do they do on the side? How much prep work do they do? How much do they work in the cages? Jeff Kent talked about it. It's a lot of work that you don't see, the fans see, and you do a lot of side work. And Jeff Kent's that kind of guy, a gamer.
Okay, since you're talking about side work, are there a lot of Major League players that do not do any of the side work that you mentioned?
Yeah, there's a lot of players that didn't. A lot of guys just went in, strapped it on, took a couple batting practice hits, and got ready for the game. Different strokes, different folks, David, and a lot of times guys didn't stay after. They got dressed and showered, and they were out the game, where a lot of times you had guys sticking around in the clubhouse talking baseball. And those were the guys that lasted longer than the other ones. A lot of them were hit and go, you know, get off the field, take a shower, hit the training room, and I'm out the door. So different styles of game, different thoughts of the game, but, you know, overall Major League Baseball's prepped a lot, and now with all the analytics, they're doing a lot of more work. So we'll find out, but I'm real happy Jeff Kent got in. I really am, and I'm sure you do too. But thanks for the call, Dave. Let's take a quick break on the Extra Inning Postgame shows. Phones are lit up. We're going to come right back to you. Jeff Kent is the subject matter. And I also want to hear your thoughts if you had an ABS challenge. When you only had 2 of them, would you put one in your back pocket for later in the game, or would you use them whenever you need them? We'll be right back on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
You're listening to the former Giants righty. It's KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Heard on your Apple HomePod by saying play KNBR.
There's a swing. There's a high drive to right field. Back onto the warning track and leaping in the fourth archway and not getting it was Adele. 1 run is in. 2 runs are in. It's a double for Luis Arraez, and now it's a 1-run game.
Back on KNBR with Bill Laskey on a Sunday. Luis Arraez hitting that double. And boy, when he first hit it, I was wondering if it was going to hit the bricks or maybe even go out of the ballpark, but he ended up getting a double, scored 2 runs, and that was a tying run and a bad call by Wendelstedt off Elliot Ramos with no ABS challenges left. And the game got over with a call strike 3. But the Giants ended up rallying. They didn't have enough to get it going, though, as they would lose this game 4-3, 4-run, 7 hits for the Angels with 2 home runs, 1 solo home run by Soler and then a 2-run home run by Joe Adell. Both of those were in the 4th inning against Carson Whisenhunt. He got his first loss of the season. 415-808-KNBR, threw a few subject matters out there. Jeff Kent, of course, in the Hall of Fame. Love to hear your thoughts on the ABS challenge also. All right, let's go to Scarecrow. How are you, Scarecrow, on a Sunday?
I'm doing all right, Bill. Just getting over a little back surgery. But I've got a particular problem with Hunter Wendelstedt. And we discussed this before at Tampa Bay when they missed Elliot Ramos' home run. And the derisive way that he talked to Mr. Vitello, an empty ballpark.
I agree.
Mike, yeah. And the point is that this happens on a recurring basis. And I find it also very interesting that the Giants run out of challenges, and all of a sudden, Mr. Wendelstedt can't seem to find the strike zone. And
it's true.
Yeah.
Scarecrow, it happens too, doesn't it? It really, not just Wendelstedt. It seems like when these umpires, they're getting testy now when you're getting challenged with the ABS. And if they're wrong, you can see them. They're just getting like heated under the collar like they're perfect. He's one umpire that you can tell when he takes his mask off and points up to the scorebook, you know, to do the challenge. And it's just, you could see he's upset. Like, what do you mean? You're questioning me? And that's where maybe some of these older umpires are just disgusted with the ABS. We don't know their feelings. No umpires can talk about it. I've tried. And they'll do an interview, but they will not discuss the ABS. And right now, I think it's a center of attention, especially with the older umpires.
Well, it's my understanding there's a lot of them getting ready to retire because of that. The thing is, 2 challenges aren't really enough. Because it really, if you have a rule and you really can't use it, then what good is the rule? I wouldn't have a problem with them using, 1 challenge an inning for that matter. It doesn't take any time to use.
No, and it's pretty quick on what you see, too. On the board, this board comes up, it's a quick, I mean, it's got to be less than 5 or 10 seconds, wouldn't you believe?
I believe so. And the fact of the matter is, remember that the one good thing about this is it's making the strike zone uniform. There's no more low ball umpire. There's no more high ball umpire. There's no more wide corners on the right, wide corners on the left. It's a strike zone. It's what it's supposed to be. And the fact that they don't like it, hey, I'm really sorry, but guys, you're paid to do a job. Do the damn job. If you don't,
do you think Scarecrow? Do you think it shrunk the strike zone as you're talking about the higher pitch, the lower pitches on the edges? You had umpires that did that. I mean, back in my day, we had so many of them. They gave the inch off the plate or the low pitch, and you worked the corners. You worked them as far as the umpire would call a strike zone. And now it's like you say, it's formed. It's supposed to be that way. And maybe that's what they're getting upset about. They want to call that ball inside, just like Wendelstedt did on Ramos. 2 pitches, not just 1, 2 of them in that last at bat. And he knew, these umpires know they don't have any more challenges, and I think they opened the zone up a little bit more to kind of flush it at you.
Well, let's put it to you this way. I don't like an umpire actively going out to try to influence what's going to happen in the game. Anything that does that and takes it out of the batter's hands, I'm sorry, it's bad for the game, period.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of Hunter Wendell's stats. He's not going to be half the umpire his dad was. And the point being that it's a rule. Live with it, guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it is.
And, they give you one more in extra innings, but would you, let me just say this one to you, Skarker. If you were managing this team, would you have a strategy for ABS, or would you just let any player do it when they want?
You know that the umpire is like a, Hunter Wendell stat. I make sure I have at least one in my back pocket in case I really need it. Okay.
Let me ask you this one. Did you think Adames needed to use that on the 3-0 pitch?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
I didn't like that either. There was no need for that. 3-0, you still had two more pitches, and I didn't think that was needed at that time.
No, I mean, the idea is you're out there to try and get a run across. Your ego is bruised. Okay, fine. Put the ego in the back pocket and understand that particular challenge is a lot more important than your bruised feelings.
Especially on a 3-0 pitch. I understand what Kruk and Kipe and Dave and John were saying because they wanted to make an aggressive play on it, but in my back of my mind, I'm like, you don't need it right now. Take the strike, take it, it's 3-1, and go to the next pitch. And I didn't like it at that time, especially when you only knew you had one left. I'd rather go for the hit or go for the bat and leave it for the next guy behind me because it didn't matter at that time for one pitch at 3-0.
Well, that's the point. And the point is there's a lot of things we can say have gone wrong with the Giants, not the least of which maybe is a broader idea of what we're trying to do here. And, I don't carry a lot of water for Mr. Vitello. He's a new manager. Buster's a new general manager. They'll hopefully get it straight at some point. But by the same token, what are you doing here? It's the same thing as him standing in front of second base on that other play when he's nowhere near there and could have gotten a double play. Yeah.
I wrote down the other ABS that they had, and that was with Grant McCray. Grant McCray used one. And that was a time when he was trying to sack bunt, and he ended up sack bunting, and he used it for a ball that ended up being I think it was just the opposite, strike or a ball or strike. But he also used it in a scenario that really didn't need it. I just don't know if there's a communication that they talk about to the players. I don't know if there's any kind of the hitting coach or even Tony talking about how are we using these ABS challenges, because I think there's got to be a strategy for them. I really do.
Absolutely needs to be a strategy. It needs to be talked about amongst the players themselves. And I'm sorry, our current manager needs to show some leadership here and say, this is what's going to happen. Okay, I get it. Tony Vitello never played pro ball, and it probably runs a whole lot of people the wrong way. But Tony Vitello is a major league manager, and he deserves to be treated with the same respect that every other major league manager expects. And I'm sorry, Hunter,
especially these umpires. Umpires are there to umpire. They're not there to have everybody look at them and make a point of, I'm better than you. I've been in this league for 15 years. You're starting now. I'm gonna bully you, because sometimes it just looks like they won't even listen to him. And Kruk came out on KNBR saying maybe he just needs to be a little assertive. But I think sometimes he's going out there for explanations that they're not even explaining it to him. And I think that's really poor judgment.
They clearly have no respect for him, and that includes that play at second base where he supposedly Adames pushed him off the bag, and that didn't happen. Okay, there have been way too many instances where these plays are just, hey, I realize you guys don't want to be here. These are two teams that are completely out of it. They deserve the same attention you give the Yankees and the Dodgers or any other team that's in it. And the fans deserve that as well. There's not a two-tier system by which, the teams that are in it, they get special consideration. The teams that are out of it, they get none or less than none. And if an
Well,
umpire
good
wants
stuff,
to mail it
Scarecrow. Good stuff again, Scarecrow. I appreciate your time on a Sunday. It's always a pleasure talking to you, my friend. Let's go to Lake Merced and talk to Big Sam. Big Sam, you're on a Sunday post-game show. Not a good game, but you know what? They win 2 out of 3, and we'll take a series win.
You know, and happy Sunday to you, my good man. And I wish just had a meal at Original Joe's of Westlake. And I got to ask you what your go-to so I can bring you something sometime and just pop up. You got to tell me.
Come on, pasta, baby. Pasta. Bring all that pasta with you, pal.
Ravioli.
Pasta. Spaghetti, raviolis, chicken parmesan, anything that they have on that menu I like.
I have an idea. That's what you like, and anytime.
And you can do a side Greek salad for me there, Big Sam. You know, you got my mouth watering last weekend when you said you're making a Greek salad. I was like, okay, what do I have in my fridge to make one? But I didn't have enough, so I made one in the middle of the week. So I topped you there, pal, with my feta cheese on top of it.
You know what? That opportunity comes up, I'm all over it. You name it, your time.
We'll definitely hook up there, Sam. We'll definitely do a lunch or something for sure.
Yeah, I that's going to happen, no doubt in my mind. I had an inkling going into this game, and I see that, and maybe you can, because you're the sort of the elder. You see things from a different bird's eye view, and you get another opinion on it. Carson Whisenhunt, I feel like his starts or his spot starts, or when they call him up, I feel, and maybe I'm mistaken or I see this differently, but I think these are auditions for him. And I figured,
for sure,
here's a rookie who hasn't had a lot. He had a couple good starts, but this is their chance to get a third win and maybe onto something, because they got a tough Milwaukee team coming in this week. And if they can't...
Well, got Milwaukee, San Diego, and Texas. When you look at it, Sam, all 3 contending teams. San Diego just swept Miami. They're starting to play a little bit better. Milwaukee, of course, has over 60 wins. Texas is in first place in the AL West. So now you're starting to play some teams that are contenders. So you're going to have to be better at what you do, play better, pitch better. But I think what you're asking me, I think Carson Whisenhunt's going to be in his rotation for the rest of the year now that McDonald's down. And today I just think they ambushed him the second time around, looking either fastball or changeup, and that's what both of those home run balls were hit off of, because he was really throwing real well with that changeup, 5 strikeouts in a row. But when you look at what he did in the 3-pitch mix, it was mostly changeups, fastballs. And I think when he's going to look at this, he's going to have to throw more breaking balls. He only threw 18 of them out of 78 pitches, and I think he has to use that a lot more.
And Bill, he's 25. He's not a child anymore. He's not, in the minor system like he belongs here. And I really think he does and should be in the rotation. But he's got to understand, we've got 55, 56 games left. Can we pull off half of those and go into the following year, God willing, if there is a following year in baseball, that I can be a part of this rotation? And you look at what do we got? A week left for the month of July, and then we're leading up to.
Well, you got until August 3rd. I'm looking until August 3rd, Big Sam, because that's when you're going to see what team you're going to have on this roster after that Monday, because that's going to be the roster you're going to live with and play with for the next 6 to 8 weeks after that. And I think right now we just don't know what this roster is going to look like until Buster Posey goes through the trade deadline and sees how many young guys are going to come up, fill holes, who's he going to trade, and what are some of these older players that are going to be moved, and what positions and staff is going to be open, because there's going to be a haul here. There's going to be a good handful of guys moving, but we'll find out, Big Sam. But I got to run, buddy. Have a good Sunday. I'm glad you got a full belly, and we'll talk next weekend, my friend. Thank you so much for the call. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Got a few calls on hold, so don't go anywhere. 415-808-KNBR. Love to talk to you about the ABS, as well as Jeff Kent, the new member of the Hall of Fame. I'm Bill Laskey. We'll be right back on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
This is the flagship of Giants baseball.
Double play!
KNBR and KNBR FM San Francisco, the sports leader. This is KNBR Extra Innings with former Giants right-hander Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Hear him on your Apple HomePod by saying play KNBR. Play KNBR.
Back on the Extra Inning postgame shows this Sunday as we honor Jeff Kent, who was inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame today. And it was pretty cool watching all these players go on stage. And some of those guys I interviewed this year, Cal Ripken Jr., Raleigh Fingers, Andre Dawson. Those are 3 interviews I've had on Extra Innings. And then last year I had Wade Boggs, Alan Trammell, Jim Leland. Of course, I knew Jim all the way back in my days in Ohio. And I'm going to have Jeff Kent on here in the next couple of weeks, so we'll definitely get an interview with another Hall of Famer. But just seeing these guys and their ages and what they look like, and, of course, a lot of them had smiles on their face and a great crowd out there. And, of course, Jeff Kent honoring Giants fans and talking about how Giants fans came out to support him. And I'm right there with you. All right, 415-808-KNBR if you want to get on the phone lines, talk a little Jeff Kent. Let's go to Bill in Livermore. Bill, you're on a Sunday edition. How are you?
Hey, Bill, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Tough game today. I was hoping for a sweep, but you know what? We start another 3-game series with the Brewers tomorrow. So turn the page and go after them tomorrow.
And that's the right attitude. You know, Bill, it's apparent now this is a building year, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I wish it were different, but, you know, today I think is a good example of that. You know, every once in a while, you know, the pitching staff has to give the offense a break, right, and vice versa. And today was a day where they needed the pitching to step up and maybe shut them down, and it just didn't happen. And, you know, I think as, you know, I listen all the time. I think a lot of people have expressed, you know, the hitting side and, you know, the people they want to keep and the people that they think they could trade. And the hitting could get better too, don't get me wrong. But I think, especially in that park, Bill, the Giants got to get better with the pitching side of the
100% agree with you, Bill. And, you know, the other thing, too, Bill, is you got to look at Jose Soriano. This kid was nasty today. Of course, 27 years old. He's going to be up for a trade also. There's teams looking at him right now, and he's been pitching great. He's 9-6 with just over a 3-pointer and run average. Some of the pitches he threw were just moving all over the place, and he's a good arm. I mean, most likely some of these teams that are looking at the bottom feeder teams to pick up a pitcher, that's one guy I would have scouts on. He impressed me today.
I would agree, yeah. And if you think back to the Giants, you know, 3 world championship teams and that run in there, it really started with the pitching. I mean, they had good hitting, and they had very good defense too.
Yeah.
But it really started with the strength of the pitching, and not just the starters, but they had that, you know, the core 4. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying you're going to, you know, replicate that. That's easier said than done. But I think, especially, like I said, in that ballpark, it starts with the pitching and the defense. And then you've got to have the offense, obviously. And once again,
Bill, you said the magic 2 words, right? Pitching, and defense, because that's what really won those World Series. The defense was really good, and the pitching was the starting pitchers got deep in the games. And like you said, the 4 horsemen put the fires out to the end of the game. You had a closer you could commit to, but you also had other people to set them up. And I think that's what they didn't have this year. I'm sure if you listen to my show many times, I've said Buster watched Walker be his closer, but he didn't have a backup to Walker. And that's where it proceeded to snowball on him. And they didn't have people set up. You know, a lot of callers told me in the beginning of the year, I said it perfectly, and then Jeremy Affeld said it also. They didn't have roles for relievers, and you have to know when you're coming in. And it's not the physical part of the game, it's a mental part of the game. Tyler Rogers, he knew he was going to be in the 7th and 8th inning every time, so he prepared for it. The closers prepare. Once that game goes on your favor, that closer starts preparing for that 9th inning. That's the mental side of the game. That's what that bullpen coach is there to separate everybody and to know what your roles are, and I think that's where Buster dropped it at.
Absolutely. You know, the other thing, Bill, that I would love to go on, but I understand there's other callers, but the other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about, an earlier caller talked about Steve Garvey being in the Hall of Fame. And there were a couple of guys, but I remember Steve Garvey in particular, and I'll tell you why. My brothers are Dodger fan. My dad was a Dodger fan. My mom and I were the Giants fans. But I actually bet my brother when Steve Garvey retired, he said he's going to be a Hall of Famer. And I said, no, he's not. And he said, what do you want to bet? So we bet $50. And at that time, Bill, like a lot of things, baseball evolves. The game now is different from when you were playing. The Hall of Fame has really evolved. And I would argue it really changed when Harold Baines was put in the Hall of Fame. Because prior to that, when I was younger, it was all about the numbers. If you had 3 MVPs, you were in the Hall of Fame. If you had 3 or more Cy Youngs, you were in the Hall of Fame. If you hit 500 home runs, you were in the Hall of Fame. If you had 3,000
the automatic numbers, right? Those are all the automatics, right?
That's what it was all about, and that's why I bet my brother that Garvey wasn't going to make it, because he was, by today's standards, Steve Garvey is a Hall of Famer. If you compare his numbers and the things he did, he probably would be in the Hall of Fame. But that, like I said,
Bill, one thing that I remember. The one thing I want to bring this up, and when we played the Dodgers, when he would want to bunt, we'd say bunt to Steve Garvey. Garvey was so worried about his defensive numbers that he never threw to second base, ever on a bunt. He would just take the automatic out to first base because he was so worried that he was going to throw the ball into center field. So every time in our prep, they would say, if you have to bunt, it doesn't matter if he's right on top of you, bunt it right to him, and he'll take the out at first. And that showed me right there he was more worried about his numbers than how the play is supposed to work.
How about that? That is a great story, which I've never heard, Bill. That's awesome. But
think about it, though. I mean, do you remember any time? Do you remember, Bill? Do you ever remember him throwing to second base on a bunt? He never did, ever.
I don't
ever.
Yeah,
he never did, and he always covered it.
Yeah, no. So like I said, I think what's happened is the game is evolving right down to the other subject that you've been talking about is the ABS system. And this is why Billy Williams was the other player he talked about. And by today's standards, maybe Billy Williams would be in the Hall of Fame too. But the ABS did not exist even 2 years ago, right? How the game evolves. And I thought you brought up a great point. But I think part of the point that you're making is the teams are still trying to figure out this system. When do we challenge? Do we save our challenges? And not all players are created equally. They talked to Brandon Belt, and he was salivating at having a system like this.
I remember that. That was a pretty good interview. Alex Pavlovich did that, and he says, I don't need the ABS. I knew it was a ball and a strike all the time. He had one of the best eyes of any player I've seen.
And that's a piece of this, right? There are certain players, that's what you learn. And in fact, he even made the point, he said, I think this is going to make everyone better. I think it's going to make the players better, and I think it's going to make the umpires better because they're going to get more feedback around that strike zone. And what is and isn't a strike. But
it definitely has made the strike zone smaller, don't you think, Bill? It's made it to a strike zone where the corners are the corners. They're given that high pitch, like that high breaking ball or that high curve ball because it's floating in on that box. That's still a ball, though. But the low pitch, it seems like the ABS is picking that up real well. The edges, you see the ball maybe a tenth on the zone. It's a strike when it hits a red box. I just think there's got to be a strategy. Don't you believe, Bill? I mean, I'm trying to throw this out there to hear what you guys think. What would you think? If you were Tony Vitello, would you tell your teammates, we want one going into the ninth inning to have one in your back pocket?
Absolutely. And today is the prime example why, right? It's interesting. I think even Kruk and Kipe, I've heard them talking about this. And I think, like I said, I think the philosophy is evolving with time. And today, obviously, they got burnt because there were some obvious big pitches in the ninth that really could have changed the outcome of the game. And not having that one challenge left really hurt the Giants today.
Well, I was just a little disillusioned on Willie Adames doing on a 3-0 pitch. I didn't think that was needed. With only one left, and you know you have one challenge left, I just didn't think it was needed then. Take the strike. You got 2 pitches left. There was no need for that. And I know at the end they were saying, no, that was an aggressive call by Willie, but I was just I disagree with that. I think you could have saved it and moved it to the next guy behind you if that was needed. And it did matter. It really ended up mattering if he didn't take that.
Absolutely. No. And yeah, so I think, like I said, it's going to be interesting because the minor leaguers have been dealing with this for a couple of years now, right? Mm-hmm. And as some of those guys come up, it'd be interesting to talk to Bryce Eldridge and ask him, do you think, having that experience in the minors has helped you at the major league level? Because I've noticed he's lost very few challenges this year.
He's very good. And so is Susak, too. Susak's really good behind the plate doing it. He's missed a couple of them. But I think when you're saying that, I think you made a good point, Bill. These guys have been doing it in AAA, and they know the zone a little bit more. And they really talk to umpires a lot. And I think a lot of the discussion is, watching the ball, especially the late movement on some of the pitches. It's difficult to know if it's a strike or a ball with that ABS. But sometimes they challenge him when they know it's a strike. And that's why my biggest point is, if you know it's a strike, then do it. But if you're questionable, I would not spend it on one unless it's a tight game toward the end of the game.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm with you. I would, if I were a hitter, I would only call the challenge if I really knew that was a ball.
Yeah.
Especially
well, Bill, thanks for the call. Thanks for the call this afternoon. Hit me up on weekends. We can continue this ABS conversation because I really do want to open it up to the lines and talk about it, and that was a great call. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate it. Let's go to Alamo and talk to Manny. Manny, you're on a Sunday postgame show. How are you doing, Manny?
I'm well, Bill. I'm well. I enjoy the show. I love your interviews. But you got me thinking, as we're all trying to figure out what is wrong with this team, given there's so much really right with it. Okay, and a lot of good stuff, but a lot of horrible stuff that ends up in losses. And you said something. It
does. And there's a lot of holes, don't you think, Manny? There's holes. There's holes in the defense. There's holes in not taking enough walks. There's holes with relievers coming in and walking the first hitter. There's ways that you can improve this team, and all you got to do is concentrate a little bit more.
Okay, this is getting to my point. And my point was revealed when you started talking about this ABS day that we've had today. And really, the Adames one, I'm going, okay, yes, I agree with you. But maybe that's on the borderline. But the Grant McCray challenge was ridiculous. Okay,
yep.
The Elliot Ramos challenge to start the game was ridiculous. And what it says to me, Bill, is there's a lack of leadership. And let me just rant for 15 seconds. No one has been told, guided, informed, led on what the right strategy should be. In my opinion, there should never be a challenge unless it's ball 4 or strike 3. Okay, that's basic number one.
I agree.
And then
100% agree.
Yeah, like Luis Arias, does he get scared when it's a 2-strike count? No, he does not get scared. Did Barry Bonds get scared? No, he does not get it.
No.
You should be able, if it results in a base runner or a out, then maybe. Okay? Then the second thing
let me say one thing, Manny. Doesn't it seem like you're when you see it and you're like, why are you doing it now? It doesn't mean there's nobody on base. Okay, you missed one pitch and the ball was tight and you call it, not thinking about the other. You only have 2 and you miss it, so now you're giving your team only 1, and who knows if it's in the beginning of the game or end of the game, middle of the game. That's why I think there's got to be some kind of strategy built up with your players. And you got to understand it, especially with your catchers, too, with the pitches. There's no conversation here. There's no doubt. There's no communication.
100%, and I think it's leadership. Okay, so my second and third points get to your holes point, okay, is that the coaching staff is not working well with this team. The batters have had it's been frustrating that they cannot adjust or they refuse to adjust. The pitchers, okay, when Andrew Bailey used to come out to the mound, every time He corrected the issue, and the pitcher got locked in every single time.
Yep.
Andrew Bailey. Okay. Now, no. Ball one, ball two. Okay, go out there, talk to somebody, fix the problem. Hitters, the same thing. They're not adjusting. My last point on this lack of leadership, Willie Adames. He is arguably, I guess by the stats, the worst fielding shortstop in baseball. Okay, so I've heard people say he's the worst. He has most errors or something. I go, you have Ron Washington on your staff, and he has transformed Luis Arraez. And then I heard Susan Slusher say, "Oh, it's because his back's hurting." Then he should not be playing short. He could be a DH because his bat is valuable. But no one will lead the team and say, "You must do this, Willie. You are hurting us in the field." Okay? So you're going to take a day off.
I do agree.
So
and the other thing, too, Manny, is, sometimes, back in my day, you sat the next day. There was no question about it. You did something wrong mentally or physically, and you were a detriment to the game, and you didn't concentrate when you needed to. We can go back to a lot of things Willie Adames has done and several other players. And the next day you should have sat. The next day there should have been a situation where you're sitting today. You're going to understand and focus a little bit more. I've never seen that ever from Tony Vitello. And I don't know if there's communication is saying, we're not going to sit him. He's going to play every game. This is the contract, blah, blah, blah. But I still think, as you say, the leadership hasn't been produced as we thought it would. And that's where I can say where Tony Vitello just has not produced that yet. He has it with him. But I don't say he's scared, but I think he worries about how he's going to produce and how he's going to bring that out to his team. And right now, I haven't seen it as well as you in your conversation you're having with me.
Well, I think he can figure it out. I think the coaching staff is a little bit broader issue. And, I always check myself, and we say, hey, they needed a veteran coach. Last year, we had the ultimate veteran coach. We had a guy.
We had a lot of them. You had a lot of them. Yeah, you did. You did. Well, Manny, thanks for the call. I got to run, buddy. I got to cut off here. But again, call me back on weekends. We can discuss more. But you're valid with a lot of your points, and I like how you brought all this in leadership. And a lot of leadership has not discussed some of the things we just talked about, and hopefully it'll change. But thank you again, Manny, for your time on a Sunday. We'll take a quick break on the Extra Inning Post Game Show. Come back with more, and we'll talk more baseball and the leader sports.
KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey keeps the postgame rolling live right here.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
On KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM. The sports leader.
All right, back on the Extra Inning postgame show. My good friend from Arizona said, hey, Bill, Billy Williams is in the Hall of Fame. And I looked him up, and sure he was. He was inducted in 1987. A member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame. He was a 6-time All-Star, National League batting champ. The Cubs retired number 26. And he's also in the Chicago Cubs Hall of Fame. So Billy Williams is a member of the Hall of Fame. All right, so we got to look at the Milwaukee series real quick here, a 3-game series. First, Monday and Tuesday's games will start at 6:45. Tyler Mahle takes the hill tomorrow. He's 2-9 with a 5.3 going against Brandon Sproat. 3-5 with a 5.09, a right-hander. On Tuesday, Landon Roop takes the hill, 7-8 with a 3.4 earned run or 3.9 earned run average against Logan Henderson, another right-hander, 4-1 with a 3.05 earned run average. And then Wednesday's a day game. Logan Webb takes the hill, 12:45 start. He's 5-7 with a 3.9 earned run average against Shane Duhan. He's 5-4 with a 3.5 earned run average. No Kyle Harrison. Kyle Harrison is still injured. He's got an elbow issue, and we won't see him in this 3-game series either. All right, let's go to Andrea. She's in Berkeley. Andrea, thanks for holding on. How are you this afternoon?
Good, Bill. How are you?
Well, I thought the Hall of Fame induction today, I thought it was very classy, very cool. A lot of great Hall of Famers showed up, and it's always a great day in the month of July that I always look forward to and seeing all the players that I pitched against as well as played with. Very classy afternoon for baseball.
Yes, yeah. In fact, they have the repeat going on now. I'm watching it again. And, flowers to Jeff Kent. He was actually on the front page of yesterday's East Bay Times. It said, arising amongst turmoil, he left as a fan favorite. And I remember seeing him play when I go to Giants games. And he came to the Giants when he was 29 years old. He was having his Saturn return, which, as I said, is a cycle of new beginnings. And he was born March 7th, 1968. So that was nice timing when he arrived with the Giants. And he's an intuitive Pisces. Mars is a crucial planet for an athlete. He has Mars in Aries, Mars, energy, assertion, aggression. So he did have that fiery side to him. Well,
we saw that many times, didn't we, Andrea? He had a little fiery in San Diego when him and Barry went at it, and a couple other times he gets pretty hot with umpires. You saw a couple times when he got thrown out, getting in faces of umpires. I just liked his demeanor. He wanted to play. He was a gamer, as I said it. Every time he put those spikes on, he wanted to win. And that was the whole key to him. You heard it in his voice. You heard it in how he performed today. And I'm a winner. I want to play. I play hard. And that was the big thing about him. Some people didn't like it. Other people loved it.
Right. I liked it. I really thought it was a good balance because Pisces is kind of mellow. And Mars in Aries, Mars is exalted in Aries, meaning it's a very strong placement. So he had that fire in him, that warrior energy. So that was a good balance. And, yeah, I remember the dust-ups with Barry Bonds and so on. But it was just really nice to see him get his flowers and get his honors. And 5-time All-Star, what was that, 377 home runs? I mean, that's a sight.
The most by a second baseman. Yeah, most. And then he would, in the MVP, he won that in the year 2000 with the Giants. And it was really between him and Barry Bonds, and he ended up getting it. And, it's so true. Dusty Baker said it in an interview. Barry would get the walks and Jeff Kent would get the RBIs because he would, hit him at behind him. A 5-time All-Star. I thought that was a key point also in some of the statistics you read about him.
Yeah, what did he say? The prize is in the RBIs. He made some cute little comments during his acceptance speech. Yeah. So,
I remember what Bill Madlock said to me one time. He says, we used to call them ribeyes. Go get a ribeye steak or an RBI. And it was just, hitters always had those one-liners. Same thing with runners in scoring position. They always had one-liners about get that run in, get that run in. What I loved about what he said, and I can't remember, maybe it was Dave Winfield he referred it to or someone else where he said, with bases loaded, don't look for the big run, look for the one run. And I thought that was a classic way to say it. Instead of looking for a double, look to drive into one run, and that's your job. And those are all little things that he learned from different players and different teams he played with. And he brought all that up in his speech, and I thought that was very professional on him.
Yeah, that was a wonderful speech he gave, and had his whole family there, and had a little Pisces emotion, which was nice. And it was just a very special day to honor him, and just have the memories. I think it was 1997 to 2002 he played with the Giants, so that was nice. I saw him several times during that time with the Giants.
You had a New York Met get in there too, Andrea. Your New York Met, Carlos Beltran, got in there. Of course, he had some great years with the Mets, and he went in as a New York Met. And, of course, Andrew Jones went in as a Brave. Two good players that both played center field.
Yeah, no, that was nice. That was, well-deserved. And just real fast, I agree with you on the ABS strategy, Bill. Really got to keep that in our pocket for a strategy. It's not something to just use on a whim when you want to get another chance to get another, at bat or another ball or strike. It's really something you have to use a lot more strategically. If you only get two per game, is that correct?
You get two per game. You get one if you go in extra innings. But I don't think they talk about it enough. I don't think the communication is enough with the catchers, the pitchers, and the hitters. You have to have a strategy here, and you got to have – I'm sure you don't want to walk out after 9 innings with one left on the board, but you got to have one in the 9th inning or maybe two going in the 9th inning. And today, I disagree with Crew Kipe and John and Dave. I didn't think Willie Adames needed to use that on the 3-0 pitch. And you could go even farther back with Grant McCray using it, and he didn't need to use it. Sometimes you don't need to just move on, take the pitch and move on. There's got to be a strategy when you can use it with base runners on, or if it's a tight pitch with a catcher and he feels it's a strike, yes. But there's got to be something here that the players, the catcher and the pitchers, they need to communicate it better, and they just haven't.
Yes, I think that, I guess it's kind of a work in progress, but it definitely needs to be communicated better and worked on better. And, in the meantime, we didn't get a Sunday fun day, but the Giants got the series, so grateful for that. And if they keep winning series, that would be good. We'll put that out.
Well, they just got to keep winning, and I think with the younger players coming, and Andrea, I've said it this whole show and even yesterday, this next week there's going to be a lot of players moving. There's going to be some moves out of that locker room. There's going to be some players saying goodbye, moving on to different organizations. And August 3rd, once that day is over, you're going to find out what roster you have. You might have some guys from AAA coming up, and then you can kind of dissect what you want to do moving on in August and September. This week, they're going to play it out. All these guys are going to go out there and hopefully don't get hurt. And we'll find out what happens next weekend, Andre. It's going to be a lot of moves, and I really feel the Giants are going to move some of these players.
Yeah, I agree with you. August 3rd, that's a Monday, so it's coming up really soon.
Yep. Well, listen, Andre, you have a great rest of the Sunday. I'll be on Wednesday on Sports Phone, and then next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I will do Monday's show also, so I'll be covering all the trades and talking Giants baseball right here on KNBR. But thanks for the call today, Andrea. All right, coming up next, I sat down with one of the best first basemen the Angels have ever had. Of course, he played with the California Angels, the Anaheim Angels, the Royals, the Padres, and the Braves. He played 16 years in Major League Baseball. He ended with a .997 fielding percentage. Just think about that as a first baseman. In 16 years, he only made 99 errors. That's right, 99 errors. This is phenomenal. And that's Wally Joyner. So I'll be talking to Wally World, if you remember Wally World. And that's coming up next right here on the Extra Inning Postgame Show with Bill Laskey.
Bill is back.
Fired up, bringing it, all excited.
This is KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Listen on your Google Home smart speaker by saying play KNBR.
Welcome back to the Extra Inning post-game show with Bill Laskey. My guest played 16 years in Major League Baseball. He was an American League All-Star in 1986. 5 times he was an American League Player of the Week. And when he retired, he had over 2,000 hits. Let's welcome in Wally Joyner. Wally, how are you?
Bill, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, great to have you on. And, when you look at what you did in 16 years, 4 times you finished with over a 300 batting average, and 4 times you hit over 290. Where did you learn how to hit, and who was instrumental on that?
Well, I think that I learned. I was the youngest of 5 in my family. My dad was an exceptional fast pitch softball pitcher. We grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and I hung out at softball fields 2 or 3 times a week at night, chasing foul balls and getting a soda and a piece of gum when you brought it back to the concession stand. But, I just watched and mimicked and played, and both my mom and dad were very good athletes, and I think I learned from both of them.
Well, you started your career in a high school in Georgia, as you said, but I read where you were a pitcher. You were 5-0 with a 1.4 earned run average. I got to ask you, when did you pitch and how much did you throw?
Well, Bill, I think that ball players know you have to pitch, you have to throw faster than the swing speed or slower than the swing speed. And I was the latter. I was a thumber. I didn't throw anything straight. But I enjoyed competing. Really quick, I was recruited by BYU as a pitcher, first baseman. And after my 2 pitching tryouts, the pitching coach put his arm around me and said, "Son, I think we're going to try you at first base." So that was the end of my
your
pitching.
High school day, though, Wally, you were Georgia Player of the Year. Were you set on BYU? Was there other colleges knocking on your door too?
I had quite a few opportunities. Yes, I was the high school player of the year, but I guess I can have your listeners visualize when I got to BYU, my nickname was the bowling pin because I had a very unathletic physique where my shoulders were narrow and I had a big backside. So because of that look, I needed to make sure I got 2 hits a game.
And you definitely did. At BYU, your freshman year, you hit 333. You had 10 home runs, 48 RBIs. Your sophomore year, you got a little better. You hit 445. And then your junior year, you hit 462, 23 home runs, 95 RBIs. And BYU, by chance, was 54-11. What a great, great career you had at BYU. Each year you got better. What did you work at to sustain that?
Well, I think each year you want to get better, and we did. We had a great season in 1983. Actually, a number of my teammates made it to the big leagues. Rick Aguilera was a teammate of mine for 3 years, and he had a 16-year career as a pitcher. Corey Snyder was the shortstop. Joey Whitmer, Gary Cooper. We had quite a few guys make it to the big leagues. So I think we fed off of each other. And, I worked a lot. I worked on my game every day. And I think that hopefully that showed as I made it to the big leagues. And beyond playing as a coach, I was focused on learning the game. I was focused on understanding the game, understanding my at-bats, and making sure that I did the right thing, made the right outs as much as I could every at-bat.
Wally Joyner joining me on the Extra Inning post-game show. And in 1983, the California Angels drafted you as a number 3 pick. You ended up signing. Anxious to sign, ready to play pro ball. Was that the next move you were looking to do?
Yeah, I think so. I was ready. Didn't think that I needed to come back to play my senior year. And I think back then the only leverage that a player had was to say that I would go back for my senior year. But I was ready. Now, I wasn't ready for the big leagues, but I was ready for the next step. And I spent 2.5 years in the minor leagues learning and understanding and competing with better players, getting ready for my big league opportunity.
So you signed Wally. You ended up going to A-ball. You hit 328. You ended up going to Double-A the following year, 317. As you said, 2.5 years. Your Triple-A year ended up going to Edmonton, hit 283 with 12 home runs, 73 RBIs. I always ask this each year as you're progressing. What was the hardest year that you had to progress to watching pitchers?
I explain to people who ask, what's the difference? As a hitter, I tell people in A-ball, you're going to see one big league pitcher a week. In Double-A, you're going to see two. In Triple-A, you're going to see three. And in the big leagues, you're going to see a guy that can get you out every night. So as you get to the better leagues, you're going to have better competition. And so, I just focused on getting ready and being prepared every game. And I think that my work ethic paid off.
When you look at the pitching in AAA in Edmonton, of course, Pacific Coast League, a tough league, more or less, and the ball flies. Were you looking at more velocity or more secondary pitches, the breaking ball that you had to adjust to?
Yeah, I think it was the secondary pitches. I think it was the split. I think it was the curveball. I think it was the slider. For hitters, if you throw anything straight in AAA or the big leagues, you probably the likelihood of you getting it back is slim.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to move the ball. You got to keep it out of the middle of the plate and hit the corners. And so that's what I was working on in AAA.
Well, in the minor leagues, Rod Carew was ahead of you playing first base. He ended up retiring in 1985. You come into spring training in 1986, and you had the opportunity with a good spring. You could break camp with him, and you did, and you ended up breaking camp in your first really full year, and your rookie year was sensational. How was it when you broke spring training and they told you, hey, you're on our team, this is the next move you're going to have to make?
Well, first of all, it was unbelievable. It was a dream come true. Gene Mock was my manager, and when he told me I was on the roster, and not only that I was hitting third in my first game in Seattle versus Mike Moore, I don't think I slept that night. We had a day game. I think I was in my uniform at 8 a.m. the next day. I was ready to go, and the great story was Bobby Grich was our leadoff hitter, and he played second next to me, and I learned a lot from Bobby. But the first pitch I ever saw a big league pitcher throw was to Bobby Grich, and he hit a home run to left field, and I'm like, yeah, this is the big league. This is what you do. And my first swing, I got jammed ferociously, and Mike Moore came running off the mound 60 feet away, and I think he caught it about 30 feet from home plate. So I ran down to first base, making sure I touched first base, and I told myself, this is the big leagues, and if you don't make the adjustments, you're not long for this league. So it was an adjustment every day, every game, and if you look at that roster that year in 1986, I had an incredible group of veterans that I learned from Bob Boone behind the plate to Doug DeCinces to Reggie Jackson to George Hendrick, Brian Downing, just a number of, I mentioned Bobby Grich. All of these veterans, I just stayed quiet and kept my eyes open, and I learned a lot just by watching how they went about their daily routine to get ready.
Well, Wally, anytime you get to the big leagues, the word first always happens. The first hit. Later in that game, in your first game, you got your first hit off Mike Moore. A couple days later, you got your first home run off Mark Langston, a tough lefty. When you go back and reflect on the first game, first at bat, things like that, the first hit and first home run always take over, don't they?
They do. They do. I'll never forget those first. I was just absolutely blessed, and it was an honor to play on this team. I learned a lot from my first manager, Gene Mock, and it was just wonderful that year. I did have a good season. I had a great first half that allowed me to be the first rookie ever to be selected to play in the All-Star game. So that was wonderful that year. But yes, firsts are always great, Bill.
Well, and that's where we're going to go. All-Star game in 1986 was at the Houston Astrodome, and who was starting for the American League at first base? You were, as a rookie, a fabulous chance. And next thing you know, you're out there with all the best. A little nervous, a little anxious. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I was. I felt out of place, but I enjoyed it. I didn't think that I didn't belong, but I didn't think that I was their equal. Also, those guys, wonderful careers, wonderful ball players, but just to be right in the middle of that lineup and having a chance to enjoy the All-Star game was wonderful.
Wally, after your year in 1986, when you looked at your stats, 27 doubles, 22 home runs, 100 RBIs, you hit 290, you only struck out 58 times and you walked 57. When you went home that winter and you look back at what happened that first year, what did you say to yourself?
Well, that was a tough ending to that season, Bill. I hurt my shoulder the second half of the season, and my numbers went down, my power went down, but we did make it to the playoffs. We did make it to postseason, which is what you want to do. Along the way, I hit a couple of foul balls off of my right shin, and unbeknownst to any of us, I contracted staph infection that was keeping me from the energy that I needed the second half of the season. And in the third game of the playoffs in 1986, I was trying to score from second base. I eluded a tag against the Boston Red Sox and Rich Gedman, and I twisted my ankle, which ruptured the hematoma that was full of staph. And so overnight, I had flu-like symptoms after Game 3. I had to go to the hospital. I missed the rest of those games, and unfortunately, we didn't make it to the World Series, and that was really, really disappointing. But more rewarding was that I had a really good opportunity of losing my leg if I didn't take care of it, and I had to do that so that I could continue to play. So it was good and bad all winter. I had some great things to think about, but the ending wasn't the way I wanted it. So there was a lot of things to work on and get healthy and getting ready for my second year.
That voice you hear on the Extra Inning post-game show, 16 years he played in Major League Baseball, Wally Joyner. And as a pitcher, Wally, you broke up a couple no-hitters, and I was looking this up, and the first one was against Charlie Huff on June 16th of that same year, 1986. In the ninth inning, you came up, got a base hit. And then again in August 20th against Walt Terrell with 2 outs in the ninth inning. You ended up hitting a double. Of course, as a pitcher, I would have hated you for both of them because you're trying to hit the no-hitter. But, boy, those are key hits. And, when you're thinking about that ninth inning, the pressure is definitely on the pitcher. But it's also on the hitter, too, because you definitely don't want a pitcher to throw a no-hitter against you. Tell me your thoughts going into both of those at-bats.
Yeah, I was always wanting to be successful, whatever that was. Obviously I didn't get a hit every at bat, but I wanted to be known as a tough out. You mentioned walks and strikeouts. I hated to strike out. I think striking out, everybody knows that nothing happens, and you want something to happen. So in those two situations, I remember them like they were yesterday. Walt Terrell in old Detroit Stadium. 2 outs. I hit a ball down the right field line for a base hit. I think it might have been a double, actually.
Double, it was, yep.
And I ended up at second base, and my thought was to just be a good, if this was going to be the final at bat, I really didn't want to be the last out because everybody would talk about Wally Joyner making the last out of the Walt Terrell no hitter and Charlie Huff. So that was all I was thinking about, just battling until the battle was over. And in those two situations, I won those two situations, so it was great.
Well, in 1986, when you came back to the Anaheim Angels or the California Angels, Wally World was a big quotations. They kind of pinned that on you from the Griswold family back in National Lampoon Vacation. I remember this really well. It was a great nickname for you. Did you like that when they were doing that to you?
I did like it. It was, I embraced it. I thought it was fitting because, as you mentioned, the Griswolds were going across the country to California to a amusement park called Wally World. In real life, the Anaheim Stadium was probably 5 miles from Disneyland. So I thought it was cute. I thought it was fitting. And it was also tough because I had to perform or Wally World would close up shop. So I had to produce.
We'll take a quick break with Wally Joyner and come back with more right here on Extra Inning Postgame Show on KNBR, the sports leader.
The game may be over, but we know you want to talk more ball. So KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey continues.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
We are KNBR 104.5 and 6.8, the sports leader.
Welcome back to the Extra Inning Post-Game Show. More with my guest, Wally Joyner. Defense was outstanding for you. You ended up with only 99 errors in 16 years. Your fielding percentage was 994. Just remarkable numbers at a first baseman. And I had to go back and find out who won all these gold gloves in front of you. And I saw Don Mattingly, who won 9 of them. And then when you jumped to the National League, J.T. Snow won them over here with the San Francisco Giants. What made your defense so important to you?
My teammates.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that if I could save a bad throw from a second baseman, shortstop, third baseman, if I could save 1 or 2 from each of those guys where they didn't have to be perfect and they could get rid of the ball quicker and we could get the outs. And if I could scoop a ball and save the pitcher from scoring, from having to pitch 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 or 20 more pitches that inning, all of that was a positive for the team. And so I learned from the best, and then I would mimic fielding with the best, third baseman, shortstop, second baseman, and compete with those guys so that I would become better. And when I became better, the team became better, and that was what it was about.
Well, Wally, playing first base wasn't just catching the ball. You were fantastic in making the double play throw. In 1988, you made 148 of them. You were first in Major League Baseball. In 1992, another stellar year, you had 138. The old 3-6-3 always worked for you, or even the 3-6 pick, the pitcher covering first. That was really intriguing to me when you're watching this and reading this, and your turn to first base from to second base. Of course, being left-handed, that was an advantage. But still, you had to make the angles to make that throw. How much did you work on that?
Well, I agree with you, Bill. It was an advantage being a left-handed first baseman, but I worked on it every day. The angles, taking ground balls deep at first and throwing it to second, holding the guy on and coming off the base and making sure that you weren't in the line of the runner. You had to take a step towards home plate to clear yourself. So all of these things were done every day so that I could feel comfortable during the game to produce and to have it work.
Well, Wally, you named Gene Mock as your first manager. You also had Cookie Rojas, and then you kind of moved on to Hal McRae and also Bob Boone, your ex-teammate. You also had Bruce Bochy, and you ended up with Bobby Cox, a good array of some Hall of Fame managers. What did you think of all of them, and who was your favorite?
Well, I thought the same of all of them, which was they were my manager, and they deserved the respect that came with that title. And I learned a lot from all of them. From Gene Mock, who was old school, and he demanded he demanded knowledge. He demanded that the players that were out on the field understood and anticipated what was going to come next. And what I mean by that, Bill, is that he put me at put me at second hitting in the lineup behind either Devon White or Gary Pettis, who are our center fielders and our base stealers. So what I mean by that, Bill, is when I go up to the plate in the first inning, if Gary Pettis gets on with a walk or a single, I have to be patient to allow him to steal second. And when he does steal second, now my job is to get him to third. And let's just say the pitcher throws a pass ball and now he's at third. Now my job is to get him in. And each time those situations changed, I had to understand what my job was. Mm-hmm. And so I worked at it, and I understood it, and I understood the game, and I asked questions and just was a sponge with Gene Mock and Bob Boone and Doug DeCinces, Bobby Grich, all these guys. I would say in my first couple of years, Reggie Jackson was my own pitching coach who would come out on deck when they would make a change and bring a left-hander in to face me late in the game. Reggie would come out and say, okay, expect this from this guy. So it was all wonderful knowledge that I just soaked in. So other managers, Bruce Bochy, probably the best communicator that I've ever been around, and I realized that as a manager or a coach, that was very important. I had some great hitting coaches also. Merv Retman was one of my favorites, and I learned a lot from him that I took into my post-career of playing and my coaching career. It was just wonderful, the things that I learned in my career that I was able to use post-career as a coach.
Well, Wally, after 16 years, you ended your career with a 289 batting average. As I said, 2,060 hits, 1,106 RBIs. You could even define it even more. 409 doubles, 26 triples, 204 home runs. And taking a look at some of the pitchers you raked, the Hall of Famer Jack Morris, 21 for 50. You hit 420 off of him. Then you look at Bill Gullickson, 414, Bert Blyleven, 419. What made you hit these guys so consistently?
I love the challenge. As I mentioned early on, as we moved up from single A, double A, triple A, big leagues, every night somebody in the big leagues was getting paid a lot of money to get you out. And so my preparation and just I loved the challenge and the baseball part of hitting, the pitcher hitting comparison. Here's a guy up on the mound that has anything that he wants to throw. He's not going to tell you, and you got to figure out quickly to get a base hit, get on base, get a walk, help the team somehow. And I just absolutely loved that part of the game every night.
As we finish up here with Wally Joyner, you look at 16 years as a player, and then you went on to coach and become a hitting coach. What made you turn into being a coach, and how rewarding was that for you to jump back into it as a leader and teach hitting?
Well, Bill, I jumped back into it because I got an emergency phone call from my good friend Kevin Towers, who was the manager of the San Diego Padres in 2007. And I was in Hawaii enjoying my post-career vacations with my family, and I answered the phone from Kevin, and I asked him why he was calling, and he said, "Wally, I need you." And I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "I need you to be the hitting coach." He said, "Unfortunately, Merv Retman came down with a bad bout of mono, and he doesn't have the energy to do what he wants to do. So would you consider it?" And as a favor, I did, and it was on the job training. I learned as I went, but I absolutely loved it. From there, I went to Major League Baseball internationally and traveled around the world and was the head hitting coach for Major League Baseball with all these academies and clinics that we did. Then Philly, I can't think of his name, but the Phillies called and asked me to be their hitting coach. So I did that in 2013. And then Brad Osmus, he got the head manager job with the Detroit Tigers in 2014, and he asked me to come on board. So my last 3 years of coaching, I was honored to be with Brad and to be his hitting coach, especially with that lineup that they put together with Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez and Nick Castellanos, JD Martinez. We had Torrey Hunter. We had a great hitting team, and so it was fun to show up every day and get these guys ready to go out and perform. So I absolutely loved what I did.
Wally, last one for you. When you look at your 16 years, is there one moment in that 16 years that you can isolate on and say, hey, that's a great memory?
I would, we talked about first, and that first year was a great memory. You talk about my first of making it to the World Series with the 98 San Diego Padres. So I would probably tell you, Bill, that the thing that I appreciated the most was my teammates and the friendships that I made and the things that I learned from all of them and the coaches. I absolutely never had a bad day heading to the ballpark, so I appreciated every bit of it.
Well, Wally, I want to thank you for your time today and congratulate you on a fantastic 16-year career and also a coaching career to finish that. But what you did on the field and what you did for your teammates and the fans was rewarding, and I want to congratulate you on that also.
Well, you're very kind, Bill. I appreciate the time with you. Brings back some great memories, and I appreciate the opportunity.
That was Wally Joyner on the Extra Inning Post-Game Show. More coming up right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
You're listening to the former Giants righty. It's KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Heard on your Apple HomePod by saying play KNBR.
Welcome back to the Extra Inning Post-Game Show as we close out a Sunday. Giants win 2 out of 3 against the Angels. They lost today 4-3. The Milwaukee Brewers come in town for a 3-game series. First pitch tomorrow at 6:45. Tyler Mahle makes the start for the San Francisco Giants. He's 2-9 with a 5.3 earned run average. I want to thank my guest today, Wally Joyner. Of course, you can hear that interview if you missed it on the All KNBR podcast. And I want to thank you, Giants fans, for talking to me about a lot of things that happened today. And, of course, to honor Jeff Kent, who's in the Hall of Fame. What a glorious day in Cooperstown for him, Carlos Beltran, and Andrew Jones. I want to thank my producer today, Ryan McCarthy. Did a great job handling all the calls and moving the show on. I thought it was a good show again today. I'll be on Wednesday doing a sports phone show from 7 to 9, and then I'll be on next weekend when the Giants go to San Diego for a 3-game series Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. For Bill Laskey, have a great rest of the Sunday. More coming up right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
It's another great outing for the righty on your home of San Francisco Giants baseball. KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader. Play KNBR on iHeartRadio.